The planless aff is a lot less intimidating than one might think. Often referred to as a critical or k-aff, planless affs identify a problem in the status quo before proposing a method to solve that problem. But wait, you might ask, that's just like a policy aff. You'd be correct, except that the k-aff identifies a problem by proposing a theory of power for how the world operates while indicating why action must operate under that lens. As a result, a k-aff oftentimes indicts traditional paths to change, like legislation. When structuring a planless aff, you should always propose your theory of power first because it defines how the rest of your aff will operate. The theory of power is an overarching framework that describes how the world operates and why it works that way. You must have a thorough understanding and a solid grasp on the theory of power because if the neg successfully undermines it, or if you fail to properly explain it, you will have a hard time generating any winnable offense. Moreover, make sure to explain why the judge should vote aff and what their ballot exactly does. Does it endorse your methodology or does it actualize specific actions? Be specific here, because otherwise it will be extremely easy for you to lose on presumption, which is an argument that says that you don't actually result in any change. Let's take a look at the example of this settler hauntology aff from the 2018 to 2019 immigration topic. The first Luna and Fireball card introduces a theory of power for the aff, while most importantly, explaining it within the context of the topic. It explains the historical context for an event that represents how modern immigration policies are a product of settler colonial beliefs. The first and second Belloy cards detail the impacts of settler colonialism, and the third one explains why the normative framing of the topic prevents the discussion of these issues, thus warranting why the aff needs to take this unique perspective into the round. The tuck and re-evidence is the solvency advocate for the method, which is genealogical haunting, and the rest of the aff reinforces the solvency story while including impact framing. My personal favorite part of k-affs is that it allows for several creative liberties in its expression. Many k-affs are built on card-structured 8-minute constructives, but the ones that stand out provide a relevant narrative, story, poem, music, or other forms of performance. Once you have a good understanding of k-affs, don't be afraid to branch out to these different forms of argumentative expressions. Just remember that these performance affs must always be relevant to the theory of power and to the storytelling of the aff. You will also need to defend why your performance is good and necessary to the presentation and the argument of your aff. The most common answer to a k-aff is the tried and true T framework. Framework at its core is an argument about what debate should look like. By providing some definitions, this argument includes an interpretation that debate should only be about policy action specifically. Framework then argues that departing from this norm makes debate unpredictable, unbalanced, and or uneducational in some way, meaning that the aff, and more importantly, the model it represents, should be rejected. Besides framework, k-affs are prime targets for disads, as they tend to advocate for the dismantling of entire systems at once. Reading a disad puts the k-aff in a double bind, because they either link into the disad or they no link out of it by arguing that they don't actually implement the changes that are core to the link, which makes a presumption of argument possible from the neg. KVK debates are another major genre of debates you'll be exposed to when reading a k-aff. These debates are a theory of power showdown and tend to gravitate towards focusing on whichever team has the better method for solving a certain issue. This is generally encompassed by the root cause debate, because if the aff's issue is the root cause for both the aff and the neg's critique, or vice versa, then the aff method, or neg alt, depending on the situation, should be prioritized to solve both sides' impacts. This also means that the permutation becomes crucially important in these debates because it also details the relationship between both methods. Now that we've covered the basics of the planless aff, make sure to prep out the common type of arguments that we've mentioned. Write out overviews for your aff that thoroughly summarize your theory of power while leaving them flexible enough to adapt to the round at hand. Most importantly, read, read, and read. You must absolutely understand your own position if you plan on winning, and if you know your opponents, then that's even better. K-affs are all about effective storytelling, and make sure you don't take your aff for granted because they'll often deal with serious subject matters, so approach your reading from a point of genuine interest. That way, you'll come out more educated and likely with more energy to win some debates.